Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Last week, I think it was last week, recently, let's say that, I announced that I was canceling the book project I've been working on this year. Just because it's as I said in that video, if I remember, I will put it up here. I won't remember. Sorry, you can find it. I wrote a series of stories about poetry that I was working on, photographs I had taken, whatever, that ended up being very negative, and I didn't like that direction. That wasn't the intent. It just, everything devolves into this negativity and this cynicism. And so I'm not going to release it. Like, I stand by it. I think it's valid art, like the writing, I mean. I think it's valid, but it's not what I want to put into the world. So maybe someday I'll come back, revisit, rewrite it, make it a little bit more humorous and less about that. And on that same vein, I kind of already started to do that. Not in any sort of official, like, I'm going to redo the book and have it ready. But a friend asked me to write an article for him, for his publication. I've written for this publication in the past. And I said, sure. He specifically wants writing about gaming and you know, my childhood in gaming, and I said, okay, I can do that. And I started thinking about what would be a good story. The last one that I wrote was about conventions in the 90s, and this time I decided, oh, I have a perfect one. And just like the summer that my world changed, and I believe that summer was 1993. I'm not positive, but I feel like that's correct. I feel like I was 14. It might have been earlier than that. Actually, it had to have been earlier than that. 93, I would have been a freshman. It had to have been 92. I don't know. I haven't looked up the dates. But the point is, it was the year, or maybe the year after Magic the Gathering released. Whatever that was. If that was in 91, then it was 92. If it was 92, it was in 93. I feel like I was in middle school or junior high because the friend that I referenced in this story, we didn't go to the same high schools. So I didn't see him after junior high. Like, we didn't stay friends. Or if we did, it was maybe just our freshman years and that was it. I don't know. Anyway, the point of this is, he called me up one day during that summer. So, I guess it could have been 93. It was the summer of because it was like we were getting ready to go to school. The summer, he called me up and he said, man, I got this game, you got to come play it. And I said, what is it? And he goes, it's Dungeons and Dragons, but it's a card game. And I said, cool, let's do this. So I go over and we play this game, and it was fantastic. It was a beta deck that he had, or a couple of beta decks. His cousin lived in like Seattle or something. His cousin bought these cards, brought them over here, and left, and he played them, whatever. Because it was like years, like probably, it took at least another 1, maybe 2 years before Magic actually made it here. Like, it took a while to get across the United States. This is pre-internet days. Like, we were all communicating via snail. We were still playing play-by-email games or play-by-mail games at that time. So it took a long time for the popularity of the game to reach the East Coast and for people to for you to go to buy it here. But the reason that I'm telling you this story right now, and I'm writing this story about that, I've been working on this story about that, is because what made that an insignificant event for me was, it was Dungeons & Dragons, the card game, but it didn't say Dungeons & Dragons. And that was significant for me because I grew up in the 80s. I grew up during the satanic panic of the 80s, and my mom was absolutely influenced by the satanic panic. I don't know how or why, like, I'm assuming that it was a church group or some sort of mom network that said these X things are bad, your children shouldn't partake in them. I don't know what that was. Maybe there was a group that I'm not aware of. I could probably talk to my mom about it, but it's not important. And that's the thing that I've discovered about this story is it's not important. This story isn't about how my mom told me I couldn't play Dungeons and Dragons. When I was a kid, that's what the story was. It was like I felt she didn't understand, whatever. and I was mad about it. I'm not mad about it anymore. It was ridiculous. Millions of people went through this, right? It's nothing special to me in my situation. Why? I'm not upset about it, but it was a part of my life. And so I can tell this story through the lens of, oh, I get to have D&D, but it's not Dungeon and so my mom won't, she can't ban it or whatever, because D&D was like, absolutely, you will not bring that into my house. She knew, I think, maybe not. She knew I was playing it at my friend's house. She knew I was playing it at Boy Scouts. Like, our Boy Scout troop devolved into, all we did was play D&D. We played 2nd edition, Dungeons and Dragons, every meeting. That's basically all we did. And so she knew that it was a part of my life, but I wasn't allowed to have it in the house. I couldn't read the books. I couldn't have any of that stuff around. And my mom went through my stuff. Like, she went through my stuff. That was something, that was part of that whole era, right? But magic was that, like, I could get this into the house. It was still had the awkward name at that time, like magic and witchcraft, and there was like, I don't know, was it faxes? Like, how did parents get this information that, oh, look for these keywords that your kids say, and that means they're sacrificing goats to the two-legged, two-horned Beelzebub? I don't know. I don't know how parents got this information, but somehow, D&D was on that list. The Simpsons were on that. I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons because that was born of the Antichrist or something. There was lots of these, like, things that were part of the social zeitgeist that just were banned in our house because it was unholy or unworthy. And so the name was a little awkward, but I had to show her that this is just a card game. There's nothing on here, whatever. And so I got to have, quote, D&D in my house, but it was a card game. And that was that summer. I had played board games prior to that. Obviously, here in America, we played lots of Life and Scrabble and Scattergories and Monopolies and Unos and all that Clue, all that basic stuff. I had even played a few, like I played Car Wars in the 80s with a friend. I played Battletech with my friends. Maybe some other minis games. There were some hobbyist type stuff, but that summer, that Magic the Gathering was like, oh, this is something different. And that was the moment that I fell in love with board gaming. And so for the last 30 years, board gaming has been a huge part of my life. But I thought it was interesting as I've been working on this story that negativity isn't there. The story is there. And that's what's important. The important part is that I grew up in this. Not that I'm angry about it or upset about it. It's just that it happened, whatever, who cares, let's move on. And I think that's a little bit of growth on my part, I think. And I think I can see a way forward for the book project. And maybe next year or 2 years from now, I'll get back around to it. And I'll put it back together and try to make something out of it. Because writing the negativity out that's what I want to do. Did you go through the panic? How did our parents, where did this information come from? Was it like in the newspapers or something? Like, it was so widespread, and things moved so slowly back then. Like I said, it took Magic like 2 years to get here. It took Pokemon 3 years to get from the West Coast to the East Coast. I was part of that because I had a shop in Hawaii selling Pokemon, but it was 3 years later before people on the East Coast got it. So how did moms get this like satanic panic information so quickly, so rapidly? How did that spread? Anybody know? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's 1,000 plus little things happy, successful people do differently. We are learning 19 quick tricks to feel better instantly. Number 11, cook a good meal. Even if you're by yourself, preparing a tasty dinner, setting the table, and treating yourself to a wonderful culinary experience will lift your spirits. Sharing it with someone you love or respect will make it even more nurturing. This one, nah. I am the kind of person that food is just a means to an end for me. I'm not a foodie. I don't really care what I eat. I do enjoy food sometimes, but it's just not, I could eat rice and beans every day, 2 times a day for the rest of my life and be perfectly satisfied. I only cook good food for other people. And I get immense joy out of that. Cooking for myself, no thank you. Rice cooker, beans on the stove, done.